This is Amrita University's campus at the small and simple Panchayat of Ettimadai, located in the outskirts of the city of Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu. The campus is neat, clean, well maintained, and of course, green. Just at the foothills of the Western Ghats, its breathtaking landscapes have not failed to impress anyone who steps in through the gates for the very first time. This sprawling 500 acres or so of land is a treat to the eye and resembles a nature sanctuary more than an educational institution. But just outside the gate lies a completely different story. One would be surprised to find that the scene is that of a barren or semi-arid land with very few or no trees along the roads. Efforts have been made by a handful of nature enthusiasts from the university itself to plant about 1,000 saplings in the village of Ettimadai 2 years ago. But sadly, the success rate was quite low. Along this very road, around 30 saplings were planted on either side. Very few saplings survived adverse conditions to grow into trees that have yet to reach their matured glory. When we investigated the reason behind such poor numbers of saplings that survived, we realized that there were two main reasons behind this. Real estate companies had a huge role to play. The land in Ettimadai being cleared for construction and commercial purposes is increasing each year. And since the land prices are economical and reasonable as compared to the neighboring regions, these real estate companies have no issues finding buyers. We talked to a few villagers about this problem and realized that the real estate has impacted the lives of many in these parts. For Lakshmi, it has brought about a positive change in her family's life. She says that there was a time when her husband's family owned acres of land that had all kinds of trees and tree crops. A significant portion was earmarked for agriculture. But over the years, with the failing rains and the lack of support from the government to the farmers, her family was finding it difficult to make ends meet. So selling their land to the real estate agents seemed like the wise decision to make then. It brought in huge sums of money that they carefully utilized for her daughter's marriage and her son's engineering education. Another reason for the saplings not surviving is the uncontrolled overgrazing by the cattle reared by the village folk. Most of them are just left on the roadsides by the farmers who do not care enough for the tender young saplings that are eaten by their cows or goats. They destroy the fencing around each sapling and eat the plant as a whole. Although many of them were instructed by the university to be mindful of where they leave their cattle for grazing, none of them followed the instructions. Keeping in mind what we had already learned about the situation in Ettimadai village and the challenges that we could expect to face, we set out to the village ourselves to see what was really going on. We knew that the villagers were in fact more knowledgeable regarding the benefits of trees, and it would be us learning from them rather than the other way around. We first visited Kasturi Colony, a community of the middle class filled with mostly farmers and small business holders. One thing that would immediately strike you there is the proximity of one house with the other. Most of the houses here shared a wall and had hardly any or no backyards or courtyards. They were very welcoming of us and seemed interested in our awareness campaign. The farmers we met here were quite familiar with various aspects and difficulties in tree plantation. They gave us a lot of valuable information regarding the changing climatic conditions and the vegetation that was local to this region. They were also willing to share details about what kind of farming practices they used and the kind of fertilizers and seeds they purchased. On the whole, they seemed like a self-sufficient and contented lot. They had the means to meet the daily requirements of their households. This is Armugam, a farmer who owns 20 acres of land. He comes from a family of farmers, and his plot has been in the family for generations, handed down from the previous to the next. He said that in the past few years the rainfall pattern had been severely affected in the area. He was quite disappointed that the rains this year had failed his crop. He also said that he could afford to have a borewell dug near his land to irrigate his crops. But many of the other poorer farmers had to bear the brunt of the failed monsoon this year. On asking him if he felt like the large-scale deforestation across India and in the other parts of the world had a role to play in the changing weather patterns in his village, he gave a very expected reply. He said that he knew clearing forests for agriculture and other purposes was not good for the environment, but was inevitable for the survival of farming families like his. Livelihood was the main focus of almost all humans, and they were just doing what was required of them to make ends meet. There was no resistance from almost all the farmers we interviewed when we told them that the deforestation would only add to problems of less rainfall and infertility of the soil. They said that they would plant trees around their agricultural plots or wherever possible and felt that this could undo the damage done by clearing forest cover. Next, we spoke to the cheerful Tamilarasi. Her husband owns more than 2 acres of land that has many trees in it. She said that theirs was not an agricultural family and they mainly did a commercial business on textiles. She was quite enthusiastic about our campaign and said that she would stop the cowherds if they let their cattle graze on young saplings and trees. She herself has a beautiful and well-maintained garden with many trees, and she enjoys the shade and the aesthetic appeal it gives her house. We got the most response from Ambedkar Colony, the residents of the Harijans of Ettimadai. They truly embodied the spirit of nature enthusiasts. Their living conditions were certainly not comfortable or adequate, and most of them lived in huts and thatchments. But they were the most cheerful colony we had come across. There was a sense of unity in them, and they collectively responded to our cause. Most of them previously worked on the farm forest near the foothills, and that was their daily source of bread and butter. But after the real estate boom, they lost their land and awaited work to come along their way on a daily basis or on a contract basis. They were farmers turned laborers, and they were not happy with the changes around them that affected their livelihoods adversely. Here we meet Wellingri. He was employed to work on the agricultural land of a wealthy farmer for many years. From his many years of experience there, he gave us a lot of information on what kind of trees and crops grew well in this region. He also said that he had to work with chemical fertilizers a lot and was now suffering the adverse consequences of it in his old age. He was never given any protective equipment to wear as he sprayed on the pesticides and fertilizers. He had to eventually leave his job because his health was deteriorating. After meeting with almost 25 villagers, we decided to meet the head of the village, Ramasamy Gounder. He was actively involved in the tree plantation program initiated by the university 2 years back. He was concerned about the lack of interest shown by some sections of the village. He had taken many steps since to educate the villagers regarding the importance of tree plantation and to spread awareness. But he is afraid that his words may have fallen on some deaf ears. He was happy that the university had not lost all hope in educating the villagers about the importance of trees and promised us full cooperation and support from his side. After a long day of loitering in the village and meeting with the villagers, we now had a new perspective of things in Ettimadai. We had decided to come another day to distribute saplings among those we had interviewed. Most of them were willing to plant it and tend to it as long as we provided the sapling. We aim to do so as it would encourage others to view this as a serious issue. One tree per home was the message we wanted to spread. Distributing the saplings was the most fun part of our venture. All the villagers showed great interest and assured us that the saplings would be planted and well taken care of. We took 30 saplings and had volunteers running up to us to plant it. We gave them special instructions on how to plant each type of sapling and specifications regarding its water requirements. The children of the Harijan village actively took part in this, and they were excited about being given the responsibility of having to take care of a plant. They gathered around us in huge numbers and asked for saplings. We had prepared flyers for the event and had everyone gather around to listen to a read-aloud session of the flyer by the school children. We realized that this would be a more effective way to get our message across, as most people were illiterate here, and a few others did not show the patience or interest to read it. We decided to visit the village the very next day to check on the progress with our saplings. We also wanted to see if people had kept the enthusiasm even after we had left. As we reached the Ettimadai government school, all the children from the Harijan village we had met the day before rushed to us and burst into stories of how they had planted the saplings. They literally dragged us to their colony to show us their work. Each one proudly presented his or her planted sapling. On the whole, the experience was quite rewarding. The joy in the children's faces really made our day. And most importantly, it was a refreshing change to see that those who had no basic amenities in life were the ones who showed the most enthusiasm to our cause. They were the ones who represented the future generation, and we hope and pray that they will have this attitude all their lives. We left the village in a much more optimistic tone than after our first visit. Unsure of how far we were able to make an impact in the minds of those we talked to, we will still strive to continue with our cause even after this. We intend on making many more visits to the Ettimadai village in the future and want to make a difference to the situation here.